Everyone, and welcome to lesson 1.7, day 1. Today we are going to use some theorems to solve problems. Now, some of these theorems may seem familiar to you. For instance, this first vocab word, a linear pair, we've seen this picture before. We know angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent to each other, next to each other, and they add up to equal 180 because they would be creating this 180-degree straight angle when we do small plus small equals big. So again, this is called a linear pair relationship, and they are supplementary to each other. We also have sort of talked about in the past, not in depth, but the idea of a vertical angle. And vertical angles are created when you have intersecting lines and these angles that are opposite of each other. So we have angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, okay, because vertical angles are going to measure the same thing. And then we also have angle 2 and angle 4. Those are vertical, and again, they will also be congruent to each other. So in order to solve those, we often are setting them equal to each other to solve for x. So using that information, that's what we're going to be doing in our first example. Notice the x in number 1a are associated with these two vertical angles. So we can take 13x plus 16 and set it equal to 14x plus 7. 13x is smaller than 14x. We're going to subtract that over. We get 1x plus 7. And then to get x by itself, we're going to subtract over the 7. X equals 9 this time. Now, they now want us to find the values of measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 3, which we don't have to plug back into. What we can do, though, is plug back in 9 to both sides, and we find out that both of the values that we do have come out to be 133 degrees. And now we know that these two angles are supplementary. Again, this is a linear pair, this angle and this angle. So if we take 180 minus 133, we get this angle here of 47 degrees. Same thing with angle 3, or again, we could know they're vertical. These would have to be the same. They are 47 degrees. Now, on the other hand, sometimes vertical angles, like this is not going to help us knowing those are equal because one is an x, one is a y, and same thing over here, y and x. So what we can do instead is, again, look at the fact that these would be considered a linear pair, right? Our two angles add up to equal 180 degrees. So 2 times x plus 25 plus 2x minus 30, it's a plus sign, equals 180 degrees. Start by distributing. We end up with 2x plus 50 plus 2x minus 30 equals 180. Condense. We have 2x and 2x. It's 4x's. 50 minus 30 is 20. And now that we're moving across that equal sign, subtract away 20. We get 4x equals 160. And then last but not least, divide both sides by the 4. X equals 40. So there's our first variable, x equals 40. Same idea then for our y values. We will also need to take those, add them up, set it equal to 180. So again, condense first. We have 17y plus 10 equals 180. Subtract over and divide by 17. This time our variable y, is going to equal 10. Try these next two examples on your own. First with vertical angles, next with a linear pair. Now we also have some congruency theorems. What do we mean by that? Well, they have the congruent supplements theorem that say if two angles are both supplementary to the same angle, then they must be congruent to each other. So for instance, if we said that angle 1 is 40 degrees and it's supplementary to angle 2, we know angle 2 would be 140. And then we also know if angle 2 and angle 3 are supplementary to each other, angle 3 would have to be 40 if angle 2 is 140. So thus, we can conclude those two are congruent to each other. Same idea with complementary angles. If two angles are complementary to the same angle, then they must be congruent to each other. So if this time angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary, they would add up to equal 90. So if one's 20, the other's 70. Well, they're also telling us angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary. So again, this added up to equal 90. This would have to be the same value. Thus, angle 2 and angle 3 are both 20. They're congruent to each other. Last but not least, if we know that some angles are right angles, we know they both measure 90 degrees. Thus, all those right angles are congruent to each other because 90 equals 90. All right, so let's use this in action. So let's say on this first one, they're giving us two angles. One of them, is named angle S, and one is named angle A. And angle A and angle S, they say, are complementary. So let's just give some values to these, visualize. Let's say that A is 30 degrees. That means S is 60 degrees. That means that if we draw another angle that's congruent to S, his name is angle D, it says that it would have to be congruent. So again, these would have to be the same value. So we can kind of see, okay, these are congruent. These then, both S and D are supplementary to A. Now, they're changing it up and actually giving us a picture and saying, okay, angle A is 73 degrees, which again means my buddy angle S is complementary to that. 90 minus 73 is 17. I know these two are the same size, so they'd have to be congruent to each other. They're both, angle D would have to measure 17 degrees. So try this on your own with this angle here, S. Okay, this time you have two supplementary angles and then two that are congruent to each other, right? Named X, K, and R. Find the measure of angle R. All right, last but not least, we have the idea of a perpendicular bisector. Remember, perpendicular bisectors not only bisect a segment, they also create 90-degree angles. So down here below, we are given that we have the perpendicular bisector here. So we know these are creating right angles. We know those segments would be congruent. This time they are giving us that NOL is 2x minus 12, and LOR is 122 minus 3x. And we don't know if these are equal to each other, but because of this right angle, we know that 2x minus 12 and 122 minus 3x has to equal 90. So simplify, we have 2x minus 3x, we have negative 1x, negative 12, but plus 122 is 110. Get that x by itself, we end up subtracting over negative 1x equals negative 20. But we know that those are going to cancel out the two negatives. X equals 20. Again, divide over that negative 1, get the positive. So use that fact to help you solve this last part, find the value of y given those angle measurements. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll work more in class.